Burkina Faso, once overlooked on the global stage, has just inked a 2.6 billion soybean deal with Saudi Arabia. That's right, 2 million tons of soybeans grown by local farmers are now heading to the Middle East. But this isn't just a trade deal, it's a revolution in the making. Imagine Golden F.
But this isn't just a business deal. It marks a dramatic shift, a moment where Africa is stepping forward, not as a dependent region, but as a global player in its own right. Picture this: endless golden fields under the African sun, farmers whose hands are hardened by work now lifted in pride. They're not just growing food to survive, they're powering an export economy that's earning billions. This is agriculture transformed. And for Burkina Faso, it's a declaration of independence, economically, politically, and socially. This is not about foreign aid, not about handouts. It's about empowerment, about Africa writing its own story, and doing so on its own terms. What we're witnessing is a quiet revolution, fueled by seeds, soil, and strategy. And it's already reshaping the way the world looks at the Sahel. In today's video, we unpack how Burkina Faso pulled off this massive win, from the village level to international negotiations. We'll look at how farmer cooperatives, backed by smart government policy and new investment models, became the foundation of a billion-dollar export industry. You'll hear stories of farmers whose lives changed overnight, of local economies awakening, and of a region no longer waiting for Western approval. While much of the West watches in disbelief, Burkina Faso is forging new partnerships, not just with Saudi Arabia, but with a growing list of nations recognizing Africa's agricultural potential. And this is just the beginning. With rising global demand for food security, the Sahel region is becoming a key player in the future of global supply chains. So welcome to the new Burkina Faso, bold, ambitious, and sovereign. This isn't just about soybeans. It's about rewriting the rules. And the world better pay attention. This kind of deal doesn't happen overnight. It started years ago with a simple but radical idea: that smallholder farmers could be the backbone of national strength, not just rural statistics. Across Burkina Faso, local cooperatives began to form. These weren't charity-funded projects. They were organized networks of farmers pooling resources, upgrading practices, and negotiating better prices. The government, recognizing the potential, stepped in, not to control them, but to support them. Through public-private partnerships, agricultural extension programs, and infrastructure upgrades, the state laid the foundation. New storage facilities reduced post-harvest losses. Mobile finance apps helped farmers get access to credit. Local universities began offering training in sustainable farming, and yields started climbing. Then came the strategic pivot, a foreign policy that prioritized trade over aid. Instead of waiting for donor grants, Burkina Faso sent trade envoys across Africa and the Middle East, showcasing its potential. The message was clear: we're ready to feed the world. Are you ready to partner with us? Saudi Arabia was one of the first to respond. Facing food security concerns and rising climate pressure, the kingdom looked to diversify its agricultural imports. Burkina Faso offered exactly what they needed: large-scale production capacity, a growing logistics network, and, crucially, political will. Negotiations moved fast. Unlike traditional deals brokered by third-party consultants, this one was led directly by Burkinabe trade officials and representatives from the National Farmers Union. The final agreement guarantees not just exports, but local reinvestment. Processing plants, logistics hubs, and agricultural research centers are already being planned on Burkinabe soil, creating Burkinabe jobs. This isn't just trade. It's transformation. It's how a landlocked country in the Sahel flipped the script and entered the global market, not as a client state, but as a serious player. Burkina Faso's soybean deal didn't just make headlines, it sent shockwaves across the region. Neighboring countries are watching closely. For years, the Sahel has been seen through a narrow lens: conflict, drought, instability. But now there's a new story unfolding, one of strategic agriculture, regional trade, and African-led innovation. And it's changing the game. Mali, Niger, and Chad, long considered economically fragile, are now reassessing their own agricultural policies. Delegations have already visited Burkina Faso's model cooperatives. Regional blocs like ECOWAS are taking interest, not in theory, but in action. The question has shifted from "can we" to "how fast can we replicate this?" Cross-border cooperation is gaining momentum. Plans are emerging for shared rail links and dry ports to streamline exports from landlocked countries to coastal shipping hubs. Even long-standing political rivalries are being softened by the promise of shared prosperity. After all, food is neutral, and food money talks. This deal has also strengthened ties between Burkina Faso and the Middle East, not just Saudi Arabia, but also the UAE, Qatar, and Egypt, all of whom are watching the model unfold with keen interest. As global food insecurity becomes a top-tier concern, Africa is no longer a distant supplier. It's a key player, and Burkina Faso is leading that charge. Local media across the Sahel have shifted tone. Headlines no longer read like crisis reports. They're reporting breakthroughs, interviews with farmers doubling their income, villages electrified by new investments, and youth staying home instead of migrating, because now there's opportunity right where they are. And make no mistake, this regional impact isn't accidental. Burkina Faso's leadership planned for it. By proving that agricultural diplomacy can yield billion-dollar outcomes, they've redefined what national strength looks like in the 21st century. For decades, global powers viewed countries like Burkina Faso as recipients, not rivals. Development meetings were held in foreign capitals, and Africa's role was to listen, not lead. But this soybean deal has flipped that narrative. Burkina Faso didn't just join the conversation, it changed the subject. In Washington, Brussels, and Paris, the reaction has been muted, cautious, and quietly concerned. Analysts are scrambling to understand how a so-called peripheral nation just pulled off a trade coup with one of the world's wealthiest economies. Think tanks are publishing papers. Foreign correspondents are suddenly booking flights to Ouagadougou. The tone? Cautious admiration with an undercurrent of alarm. Because this deal challenges a deeper assumption that African economic progress must go through Western institutions. But Burkina Faso skipped the queue. No IMF dependency. No conditional loans. Just a direct bilateral agreement based on production and profit. Even more unsettling to Western observers, the partners Burkina Faso is choosing. Instead of relying on legacy ties to former colonial powers, it's building new bridges with the Middle East, Asia, and other parts of Africa. This is a multipolar strategy, and it's working. Meanwhile, Western agribusiness giants are watching closely. A nation that once imported food is now exporting it, at scale. That shifts global pricing, supply chains, and influence. And if other African countries follow suit, the West will have to reckon with a new economic geography, one where Africa isn't on the sidelines, but in the driver's seat. But this isn't just about money or trade statistics. It's about power. Burkina Faso is showing that sovereignty doesn't just come from flags or speeches. It comes from the land, from the ability to grow, negotiate, and deliver, and that kind of power can't be borrowed. It has to be built. This is a turning point, but not without risk. Burkina Faso's soybean deal is bold, no doubt, but it's also fragile. Logistics must scale fast. Infrastructure must keep pace. Corruption, if it creeps in, could unravel the trust that made this possible. And global markets are fickle. One pricing shock or policy shift could test the durability of this new model. But here's the thing. Momentum is on their side. The groundwork has been laid, from empowered farmers to export-ready systems. More importantly, the mindset has shifted. This isn't about surviving anymore. It's about thriving, competing, and leading. Burkina Faso has lit a torch that others in the region are watching. The playbook is clear now. Invest in your people, own your resources, and negotiate from a position of strength. The youth are watching too. This isn't just economics, it's identity. A generation that once looked outward for opportunities is now looking inward with pride. And when the children of farmers start seeing billion-dollar exports as part of their future, that's when transformation becomes permanent. So what comes next? Expect more deals. Not just soybeans, but cotton, shea butter, livestock, and minerals. Expect new alliances, not dictated by history, but by shared interests. Expect the old powers to try to catch up or compete. And most importantly, expect more African nations to step into the spotlight, not as passive partners, but as architects of a new global reality. Because if Burkina Faso can do this, landlocked, under-resourced, and underestimated, imagine what's possible across the continent. This isn't just a deal, it's a message. Africa is not the future. Africa is now. This story isn't just about Burkina Faso. It's about a continent on the rise and a global system being rebalanced in real time. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't the kind of story mainstream media gives the spotlight. That's why platforms like this matter. If you believe in amplifying stories of African strength, sovereignty, and success, don't just watch, be part of it. Hit that subscribe button, like the video, drop a comment below. What do you think this deal means for the future of Africa's economy? And most importantly, share this.